water. There was no bathrooms that were functioning. So when I went to go into the appointment with my agent, we're walking up to the house and all of a sudden we just feel like wet all of a sudden. This is kind of gross, but we look up and he was like literally pouring like a bucket of his pee over the side.
No.
That's disgusting. You're like, okay, no more wheels. But we're like, it took a minute to realize, and then it wasn't like gross. So I decided, well, if I'm going to deal with that, I have to buy the house now. Like I can't.
What's going on, everybody? Edgar back here again with another episode. Hey, I'm so excited today. We have Melanie. She's part of our owners club. She's also part of Sub 2, right, Melanie? If I recall correctly. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here and for you to share your journey as far as what it's looked like, right? From not knowing anything about real estate to now having this big Mount Everest, this goal that all of us at Owners Club have together. So, Melanie, thank you for taking time out of your business, out of your family to be here with me.
For sure. Thanks, Edgar. So glad to connect with you at Owners Club. And yeah, the journey's been long. It's been a long, probably 2 decades of real estate, mostly up and downs, but mostly ups. I started when I was like 22, didn't know anything, thought I would just buy a house made in the 1900, I think 1902. It was a 4-unit. I don't know what I was thinking, but I thought, I'm going to flip this thing. So I actually bought it and moved into it. It was what we'll call a slow flip. It took me a good 1.5 years to get it done, but I got out by the skin of my teeth and a lot of experience. But at that point, I was hooked. That was it. I'm like, this is awesome.
That is awesome.
But I love the idea of being able to take something that was just old and gross and being able to just make it look, shiny and new and let it stick around for another 100 years, hopefully. So,
wow. So you were 22 years old when you took on this project.
Yeah, I was young and dumb, but
what were your parents like? You're like, oh, crazy, or were they like, oh yeah, I think you got this, figure it out, or were they supportive? How did that go? I'm curious. At 22 years old,
my family's always been very supportive, but I've been entrepreneurial my whole life, so I always had some kind of making money thing going on. So
awesome.
But all my family's mostly guys, and they all come from construction. So I grew up around it. So it wasn't scary to me or my family. So yeah, they were very supportive. And my brother definitely came on the scene and did a lot of the work for me when contractors were getting expensive. So yeah, he definitely saved the day there for me for sure, which he does often. At the end of a lot of my flips, he just comes in and does all the finishing work.
That's so cool. So one thing we didn't touch, right? Melanie, you're based out of Canada.
I am.
So when I'm assuming your first flip, that property you acquired the first time you acquired it there in we're in Canada.
Yeah, that was basically near Toronto, basically suburbs of Toronto at the time. But yeah, I was in Canada, investing in Canada. I was self-employed, so getting mortgages in Canada is hard enough as it is, but when you're self-employed, it's almost impossible. So that house was my primary residence. So I was able to get that mortgage. And then, my next house after that also was like my primary home as well. So it was easy. But then once I decided like, this is too slow, this is taking too long, I got to go to the US to figure this out. So now all of my investing is primarily in the US. But I did do one more flip, which was an interesting story. In Toronto, it was a hoarder house. So it was just like floor to ceiling full of stuff. It took us, I think, 6 or 8 dumpster bins, like full 20-yard dumpster bins full of stuff to empty that house out. But yeah, the hoarder he was hoarding. But anyway, we bought the house.
Collecting, I'm curious now.
It was interesting. He collected everything, but he collected it in areas. So he had a whole shelf of clocks. He had like a whole shelf of thermostats. Like it was very bizarre. He was organized in his hoarding, but it was there was no kitchen. This was interesting. There was no kitchen. There was no running water. There was no bathrooms that were functioning. So when I went to go into the appointment with my agent, we're walking up to the house, and all of a sudden we just feel like wet. All of a sudden, this is kind of gross. But we look up, and he was like literally pouring like a bucket of his pee over the side.
No.
That's disgusting. You're like, okay, no more wheels. But we're like, it took a minute to realize, and then it wasn't like gross. So I decided, well, if I'm going to deal with that, I have to buy the house now. Like I can't. I need to. So we got him out and got the house, but I actually took that house all the way down to the studs. There was nothing that could be saved. So down to
Wow.
the studs, full, complete gut reno. I think it took 8 months in total, just because we had permits stopping us at every stage. The outer wall was caving in, like contractors weren't,
Yikes.
like everything that could go wrong went wrong. So I think you learn in real estate, if you can't solve problems and you're not resilient, you're not going to make it. So
That's such a good point.
every single challenge, right? Um,
Yeah.
that one was really successful. But what was interesting about that is the day before we closed on that, we didn't get funding. So we thought we had a mortgage lined up, and then they said there's no kitchen. They went to do the appraisal. They said there's no kitchen. We can't give you the mortgage. And so I was either
Wow.
going to lose my 40K like down payment, which is kind of what you put towards the house in Canada, or I had to figure it out. So that was my first experience with hard money lenders and private money. So without that experience, I wouldn't have even known that that was an option, which kind of led me to the United States. So kind of a blessing in disguise.
Wow. Yeah, that's where I was going to go too. So I'm glad you brought that up, right? Because I was curious how you've been funding your fix and flips. So it sounds like you got exposed to the world of hard money lending and private money lending. How has that helped you with your fix and flip journey? Part of fix and flip journey. How many fix and flips have you done here in the States once you pivoted into the States using hard money or private money?
Yeah. So in Canada, yeah. So I had both my properties. I had used some sort of hard money and private money. Specifically, that one was like I think the full amount to purchase, and as well as the construction money as well and holding costs. So what was nice about that is I had a day job, so I didn't have to be stressed out about kind of the money that was there because I had just to budget correctly and get that construction done on time and on budget. So that was nice. Coming into the U.S. What I learned is I can buy sub two, I can do it with no banks, no credit, or social security number, which was fantastic. So I'll say this year I've purchased 6 properties, and unfortunately I've used a lot of my own money in those purchases. So moving forward though, I've put some constraints on myself that I will not move forward unless I'm using hard money or private money lenders or private money partners. So that's kind of where I'm at today is, I've got those properties stabilized. They're buy and holds. There was some light reno, like painting cabinets, floors, things like that. But now that I'm moving into the co-living space, it's going to require just more construction to build out those extra rooms. So that's kind of where I'm at now, just building those relationships and figuring out which way I want to go. Do I want to bring in partners? Do I want to go the DSCR loan way? So that's kind of where I am right now in today's journey.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned co-living because I think pivoting into what pace, right, and owners, what we're tasked with is, hey, what is your Mount Everest? What is your 5-year plan per se, right? Like your big goal. And you mentioned co-living, so I'm curious. Let's unwrap that box a little bit more. What are your goals for the next 5 years that are going to be impactful in the co-living space? Like what areas you're looking for? What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I think the goal was a lot smaller in the beginning of our designing what our Mount Everest is. And then, please kind of encourage us and everybody else, think bigger, think larger.
Yeah.
And even at the most recent owners retreat, I met somebody who's in co-living and he had 500 rooms. And he said he did it in 4 years. I'm like, well, if he can do it in 4 years, I can do it in 5. So went from like 250 rooms to now to 500. So my goal is 500 active rooms, either on pad split or just co-living homes in general, to solve for that affordability crisis that's in the U.S. Right now, I'm focused mainly on Texas, specifically Houston. I'm looking to build up a good team, solid in that area, so that I have property management, the cleaners, and everything just in one spot. So I'm not having to, invent the wheel at different locations. As I don't want to spread out. I want to really focus on the Houston market and do that. Yeah, so that's essentially my goal. So in order to do that, I'm going to need good teams and good systems, and obviously a ton of houses and a lot of good and a good construction crew, right? A good crew that I can rely on to be able to build out those extra rooms. But just the part that I love the most about co-living, outside of the fact that it really solves a real problem that we have, is that it's kind of like mini multifamily, right? Because the worst you're having a single house that's buying like a buy and hold. You have one renter, and if they lose their job or for some reason they just decide they're not going to pay their rent, you now have to pay that. So, and maybe that's not a big deal if you have one extra property, but let's say you're 10, 20, 30, and then people, like, for example, when COVID hit, people just stopped paying, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to have to float that many mortgages. So I like the idea that in one house, you've got, potentially 7 or 8 people paying towards that mortgage. Obviously the cash flow is 2 to 3x what you would get on a single family home, which is a great way to increase your cash flow without having to go multifamily. I'm not opposed to multifamily, but I just find that those deals take longer, and I'm an impatient person. I want movement. I need momentum. So it's got to be going on. So
you mentioned pad split, you mentioned co-living. That's an amazing model, right? Because it does solve the affordability issue that's going on right now with the rents being super high. What would be your ideal type of property that would fit your buy box per se in the Houston market?
Yeah, I'm looking, the reason I selected Texas is because everything's bigger there, and I want big properties. So I want big properties that have, big driveways and rooms like theater rooms or extra game rooms or offices, a formal dining room, because all those rooms could easily be made bedrooms by just putting up one wall, right? I don't want to, and I don't want to buy like a 3-2. I'm looking for more like a 5-3 or a 6-4. I'm looking for big properties because I feel that it's just going to be easier to kind of split them up. The rooms will be bigger. People will stay longer because they're more comfortable. Right. And it just gives people opportunity to maybe live in better neighborhoods. So I'm focusing on pretty houses, basically. I don't want them to be too old or require too much work. I'm hoping to fix and flip, but for now, just to ramp up, I want to be able to get those kind of on the market quickly. So I figure that's the best way to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. You make a good point, right? I mean, it's not just the affordability, but you also want them to feel like they're secure, and it also like a nice place, right? You don't want like a rundown type of property where, they need to feel welcoming, right? That they can stay there for a long period of time. So
yeah,
that is important.
I think one of the pieces that maybe I'm doing differently than what kind of pad split does. They do a lot of like chop up the house into a lot of rooms and take away the common space. I'm not willing to take away all of the common space. So I do want to have like a dining room or a living room where there is a shared space. Just because I feel like when there's community, people stay. So, and I just want to really include intentional, nice design as well. So not just necessarily going off of an Amazon checklist and buying all the cheapest desks and beds that are going to fall apart. So, not going over the top, but still like intentionally designing and, adding wallpaper where you need to, just to give it some kind of flair, not to the extreme where the Airbnbs are being designed, where it's just crazy, but something that looks, intentional and nice, and, not just generic hotel room looking rooms, something that has like a little bit extra that makes people, proud to live where they live.
Yeah, that's so important. I know here there's a community member, and she does amazing work when it comes to pad splits. And to your point, she does put that little bit higher quality touch on her properties that makes them want to stay there longer, right? And it's not just like a transitional. They kind of find that their home already. And to your point, if there's community, if there's a sense of, hey, yep, I know like the people that are living inside the house, then, they could potentially just live there longer. So super important.
And I feel like pad split right now they're focused on furnished rooms. I'm hoping as they evolve and grow, they'll also give us the option as investors to list on pad split unfurnished rooms, because I feel like there's a really large untapped market of, investors who have co-living spaces that are not on pad split because they're not furnishing them, right? So you're gonna let me put up a house that was unfurnished on pad split for the people who want to bring their furniture, because to be honest, when you bring your furniture, you stay longer. You're not gonna move in and 2 weeks later move all your stuff out. It's just not going to happen. I think they stay twice as long. So there is a benefit even to pad split, right? If we're going to be paying a percentage, then don't you want people who are going to stay longer? So I'm hoping they'll move to that model, because, as I see it now, I'll probably have both types of properties, ones that are on pad split and then ones that are not, because I might not necessarily furnish all my properties, depending on the area, right? So yeah.
That is so awesome. That's so true. There's so many ways, right? To your point, if they do bring their own furniture, most likely they're going to just say, well, why do I need to get my bed out? You know, there's
Yeah.
just the idea of moving furniture, moving your stuff around. It's like, ugh.
They're not going anywhere. They're going to stay. Just if
Right.
anything, it's laziness to have to move, right? For sure.
So we talked a little bit about fix and flips. We talked a little, about co-living, and you're an entrepreneur. You know, you've had that DNA early in your years. Have you like has something else been brewing in your mind that like, oh, maybe I should like be doing this business or acquiring this business? Has that come through Melanie's
Oh yeah.
awesome brain power?
There's always some kind of idea because I honestly, people, the concept of like saving your money. I'm like, I literally make money so that I could use it to spend it on something else to learn, improve myself, or to make more money, right? Just to create
Mm,
more impact in the world and whatever way that is, just to build cool things or,
yeah,
so, yeah. So there's always something. Very entrepreneurial. When I was in university, I actually bought and sold beanie babies to put myself through school. So like I
nice.
kind of went from buying and selling beanie babies to buying and selling real estate. So it's kind of made that. Yeah, I think just now, if I just think in like in the real estate realm of things, obviously I'm getting into pad split, and there's going to be like that management portion of it. So just it might end up being property management for specific for pad split, right? So once
Mm,
I'm in Houston and I have that a well-oiled machine, then why not share those resources with everybody else in Houston that needs people to manage? It's really like just a turnover, right?
yeah,
So it's not so much property management, but it is more than that, right? There's some nuances with like doing a turnover on one room at a time, right? Not a lot of
right.
property management companies want to do that, or they want to charge you a crazy amount, which is not ideal, right? So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and I know, and to your point right now, the only like, I guess there are others, but the main known well that manages this kind of co-living space is PatSplit, right? So who's going to be that competitor that comes and competes against PatSplit? Do you know any others top of your mind?
no, but it's not even that Pat Split manages, right? Like they'll get people, like they'll do all the background check and
The
they'll get people
screening and everything.
screening, but once you still have to let them in there, you still have to introduce them to the house.
Mm,
You've got to, when they leave, you've got to do the turnover, get the cleaner in there, and deal with all the issues that the tenants have, while they're in there. So outside of finding the tenants on the platform and having them move in, you're kind of in charge after that. So you still need somebody else or some other group to be able to handle that. So, but I don't know if Patsville will have a competitor or not. I'm sure they will. Everything evolves, right? But
right.
but I'm excited to use them. I love that they have the system down. It's nice to be able to visually see all your doors, especially when you have more than one property, and be able to see how everything's kind of maneuvering and moving along. But yeah, no, I'm excited to kind of ramp up business. But I think that's why we connected at Owners Club is, you're kind of in the lending space and you know a lot of things about lending. And I'm trying to figure out how to best position, myself as, to investors on, do you want to work with me and what do you need? Right. I know every investor
Right.
is different, but investing in split is it's kind of like investing in single family homes, like long-term investments. I know a lot of
Right.
lenders want kind of quick money, right? Like on EMD or Gator lending and things like that.
Sure.
So just trying to
And you
figure
did
that out.
mention you did mention DSCR loans earlier, and those are, potentially work in those type of situations where they're more long term plays, and those tend to work right. If it all comes down to underwriting, and if it pencils out, that may be a great tool there. Um, the other thing I heard about a few weeks ago, somebody chatted about new construction, but
Mhm.
dedicated for pat splits, right? Because there's this thing with like, yeah, you could potentially turn like a 5-3 into a 9-3 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But there was this guy I spoke to. He was doing like a 6 bedroom with 6 bathrooms, like full new construction, and they were like developing land. And I was like, oh my God, that is so cool, because it's like, to your point earlier, it's like a mini multifamily.
Yeah.
And it's not like a condo either. It's not the condo vibe. It's like you're still like in a single family home, but it's built out for that co-living model. And I was like, wow, that's something else that, it's kind of interesting, right? Kind of interesting model. Although there's a cost up front, which you wouldn't get returns quickly. That's more like down the road. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts about new construction versus just let me rehab something real quick and get the money turning? I was curious, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I like momentum and I like money turning, so I will probably pick that approach. But I love the idea of new construction specifically for that reason, because let's be honest, co-living, the number one probably annoyance about it, outside of just other people and living in people's spaces, is like having to share a bathroom. Like you get to
Mm,
a certain age and you don't want to share a bathroom. Like when you're in your 20s, nobody cares about anything. You'll like
yeah,
bathroom with 10 people, it doesn't matter, right? But I think
exactly.
as you target, if you're targeting co-living for like older generations, you're definitely, they want their own bathroom. They just want to have, that privacy or that flexibility or whatever. Not want to deal with other people and their schedules, right?
Yeah.
So, but I love the idea of, the bedroom to bathroom count being the same. I think that's amazing. Yeah, I have a property in Panama City, Florida that I purchased that I originally intended to do senior co-living with because it
Hmm.
was a great layout. It had 2 master bedrooms with their own bathrooms, and then it had 2 other bedrooms with the Jack and Jill bathroom in the middle. So it kind of like was a good kind of bed bath count
Oh,
ratio.
wow. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's in an HOA, so I wasn't
Ah,
able to get them to agree to it at this point. So I rented it out just to a widow who's relocating. But I think when she does move in the future, I'm definitely going to try again with the HOA because I feel like co-living is kind of an up and coming concept. HOAs, are a little scared of it, but I feel like as time moves on, they might become a little bit more flexible to that. Or I
mm.
might just try and get around it with one lease with 4 senior ladies like Golden Girls on one lease, and they're not. What are they going to do? They're going to kick them out? No, they're not going to kick them out.
They're not
So
gonna get mad. That's a good point.
yeah,
And
you're
and
not.
I know you mentioned senior co-living too, right? That's such a niche down when it comes to co-living model. Because to your point earlier, there's so many different like who's your target audience? Like who are you trying to put these in your properties? Is it like the 25-year-olds, or is it more like the 40-year-olds, or is it more like the seniors? So fill us in. What you are you looking directly for senior living? I know you mentioned that, but was that just a thought because it was in Florida, or is that what you're actually focusing in?
Yeah, I'm not focusing on any one particular demographic yet, and not specific. I'm more specific to location. I have a
Mm,
property in Killeen, Texas that's a pad split. Right now, I'm trying to fill it with veterans, right? Because it's a big military town. So that makes sense for that location. Florida makes sense for seniors.
yes.
That makes sense, right? But I think, again, demographic will depend on the location. For example, Houston, I'm looking in an area that's close to a university and close to a hospital. So that could kind of go either way, but I don't really want
Mm,
to medical care professionals with students. So I think it's just a matter of how you design it, the price point you put it at. But yeah, I'm definitely looking for people that are going to stay longer. So I think during my interview process, even though Pat Split can find a tenant, you can ask additional questions.
right.
So just really focusing on getting the right kind of tenants that you try to get them to get along just based on some minor facts in the beginning, right? So yeah, so I'm not really specified into one area, but I do want to make the houses design friendly. So that might attract like a clientele that might have a little bit more money based on the price point, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting. It sounds like you have the momentum going already. You have the one in Florida, and you said you already have one in Texas.
Yeah.
So, we can't wait for you to share some videos of the Texas one. Maybe you make a trip to Texas, do some content around your property. That'd be pretty awesome. And then you could share it with everybody else. Because that, to your point, this is like something that is needed, right? And you mentioned earlier, even HOAs are starting to be probably a little bit more lenient on certain states and depending on counties too. But it's much needed. So I'm super excited for what's to come. Uh, I think everybody, guys. If you know anybody checking out this channel that has properties in Houston, hook up with my friend Melanie. Send
Mhm.
her those properties. Creative, potent cash as well, maybe. Right.
I'm open to it. Now I got Edgar as the lender. So, maybe
Yeah, let's bring some properties over to Melanie, and because it's much as needed. So, hey, Melanie, how can my audience connect with you if they wanted to reach out to you and send you some opportunities? What's the best way for them to connect to you?
yeah, for sure. Instagram. So it's just my name. So at Melanie Oswick. Tough one to spell, but do a
Awesome.
few letters on the last name, you'll find me pretty quickly. But yeah, just DM me or whatever. That'd be amazing. And
Perfect. Yeah, I'll put your Instagram handle down at the bottom in the comments So I'm super excited for what we're going to accomplish out there in Houston. I know we have a lot of community members out in Houston as well. So I'm pretty sure, once they say, "Hey, Melanie, you need some properties," you'll start getting a few deals coming your way.
Yeah,
So I'm
connected
excited
with
for you.
wholesalers today from Houston, so from Owners Club. So yeah,
You
we're
did
definitely
awesome.
yeah. So gonna get some business, gonna get some properties going down there. But yeah, I'm excited to
Yeah.
buy. I need to buy. Let's buy some properties.
Well, I'm super excited for you, Melanie. Thank you again for taking time out of your day and spending here with me and sharing what you're up to. Because it's super important for us to, bring you some opportunities, and you're going to be able to help a lot of people up in the Houston area. And who knows, maybe you break some property, you buy some properties here in Georgia as well. That'd
For
be pretty
sure. Yeah.
awesome.
If we have any Canadians listening and they think they can't invest in the US, they definitely can. So they should reach out and I'll let them know how they can do it for sure.
Oh, that is so good. We should have touched that topic. That would have been amazing. I'll have to bring you next time and we can talk about it, because there are definitely a lot of foreigners, like I know I'm originally from Mexico, and to your point, how like can even people wrap their minds around investing here in the States when they live outside? So maybe we do episode 2.
Yeah, for sure. I'm meeting with just a tax accountant and a lawyer to go over entities. So once I've got all the entities, wrapped around in my head, we can come back and talk about, because I think that's what everybody's scared about, just the structure, right? How to structure it. So yeah, definitely part 2. We'll cover how to invest from out of country.
Awesome. Melanie, thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Edgar.
Peace.
Please.